Welcome back, everyone. Today I've got something really exciting to share. Ontario's brand new Bush Chicken Adventure Route. I'll take you along for the ride, talk about what makes it unique, and share my own experience tackling it in a bit of an unconventional way. Stick around till the end because I'll also share my thoughts and give a review of the route. Let's dive in. The Bush Chicken is Ride the Highlands' latest and greatest ADV route. Spanning nearly 1,200 kilometers from start to finish, it's a combination of their gravel crusher, timber trail, and pickaxe loops compressed into one marathon of a ride. Usually done in 3 to 4 days, it offers a great guided off-road touring adventure through the Highlands. Here's how my trip went. I started out in the town of Tweed on my trusty Gen 1 KLR 650, with the goal of completing the entire route solo in just 2 days. That included the optional intermediate West Eels Lake Cheddar section, as well as the infamous expert Call My Mom section. To pull it off, I'd need to cover about 600 kilometers each day. Doable, but pushing that much distance on gravel and off-road in such a short time was definitely going to be a challenge. My first morning was spent floating past farm fields and weaving between gravel and pavement on quiet back roads. The riding and scenery were incredible. Although many of the roads I followed were already some favorites of mine, some new ones were sprinkled into the mix. Everything was going perfectly, until a bee got caught in my collar mid-ride and stung me. Not long after, about 200 kilometers into the trip, I stopped by Long Lake to have lunch and stretch my legs. Before the trip, I had just adjusted the valves on my old KLR, and it was running better than it had in a long time. Between that and the excitement of the ride, both the bike and I were in high spirits. Soon, I hit a closed bridge, but I wasn't too bothered. The detour led me on to some surprisingly fun paved twisties with smooth curves and great views. And before I knew it, I was back en route. If every setback went this smoothly, this was going to be one amazing ride. After a few more roads, I rolled into Perth, a perfect spot to grab food, fuel up, or just take a breather. The stretch from Tweed to Perth had been an absolute treat, made even better by the first signs of fall colors painting the back roads. It was the kind of ride that really shows the beauty of mixing pavement with gravel. You get the best of both worlds, and it set the tone for what was still to come. From there, I passed through Carleton Place, Almond, and Pakenham, towns with quaint downtowns full of shops and restaurants. The riding in this section wasn't quite as exciting, with a few long, straight stretches, but it was still a pleasant cruise. Once I got into Pakenham, I grabbed a snack by the water, fueled up, and got ready to push on. The ride from Pakenham to Calabogie went smoothly, with a perfect mix of on- and off-road riding. Golden hour lit up the landscape, and rolling through the North Frontenac parklands and stretches of Crown land revealed some incredible backcountry campsites. Calabogie itself is a true off-road mecca, with hundreds of kilometers of trails for every level of rider. It's home to legendary events like the Calabogie Boogie, the Triple Clamp Adventure Rally, and even parts of the Dacre Rally. For those who don't know, the Dacre is a grueling 21-hour endurance challenge through the Canadian bush, known as the longest day. Simply finishing is considered an achievement. Following the GPS track, I soon found myself riding under a hydroline that dropped into a steep rocky 2-track, Halfway down, the trail suddenly pointed me at a steep rock feature about as tall as me. The kind of thing you'd expect in a hard enduro, not an ADV route. With luggage on the bike, there was no way I was making it up there unless my name was Paul Taras. I searched for another line, but in the dark I couldn't find one. In the end, I turned around and clawed my way back up the hill I had just descended, which was its own challenge, but far safer than breaking my leg on a rock. A short bypass on the main forestry road skipped the Rocky 2 track. I'm not sure if that obstacle was meant to be part of the route, but it's worth keeping an eye out. On a bigger adventure bike, you could easily get trapped down there. By the time I rolled into Calabogie, night had already fallen. I stopped for a breather and a quick snack, but with 200 kilometers still to cover that day, I had a decision to make. Call it a night or keep riding. In the end, I chose to push on. The cool night air wrapped around me as I rode deeper into the dark. There's something about night riding that I've always found peaceful. Just you, the bike, and the road ahead. At one point, I even came across a bear cub on the roadside. He didn't stick around long. The sound of my KLR echoing through the woods sent him running. By the time I rolled into Barry's Bay, I had covered about 580 kilometers. Exhausted and chilled, I figured this was as good a place as any to end day one. Barry's Bay has plenty of hotels to choose from, but I went with the most cost-effective option. I crawled into my sleeping bag and crashed on the ground of the Tim Hortons parking lot. At 5 a.m., the rumble of cars in the Tim Hortons drive-thru woke me up. I had also realized I was freezing. I packed up in a hurry and stumbled inside to warm up. As soon as the coffee was gone, I was back on the bike. And back to freezing. After a foggy start kicking up gravel on quiet back roads, I passed through Maynooth and reached the start of the infamous Call My Mom section. The Ride the Highlands website describes it as an advanced off-road challenge full of rocks and mud, so I wasn't sure what to expect. In the end, I actually found it pretty enjoyable and not too difficult. Just a few rock gardens here and there, nothing overly technical. To be fair, I rode it during a very dry stretch. In the spring or fall, with added mud and water crossings, I can see this section becoming a whole lot more challenging. In terms of difficulty, I'd call it intermediate on a dual sport, but on a bigger bike with hard bags or the wrong tires, it could definitely creep into advanced territory. Once I left the trail, the ride opened up into flowing country roads that wound past lake after lake. The route had some fantastic paved twisties cutting through the woods, making for a really fun change of pace. Rolling into Halliburton, I spotted another KLR parked up, so I pulled in beside it and took a break. The locals here definitely had some character. Things felt a little wild. The rest of the morning was all about carving up more twisties right in the heart of cottage country. I made a stop at the Queen of Fries in Norland and treated myself to a jerk chicken poutine. As I ate, I watched an endless stream of bikes roll past on the highway. By this point in the trip, I was feeling pretty worn out, but I was still having an absolute blast. That afternoon, I passed through Kinmount, Gooderham, and Cheddar. The unmaintained roads around here were a blast. Flowy stretches broken up with some fun, easy rock features. Since I don't usually ride this way, the whole area felt new to me, and it turned out to be a really pleasant surprise. While riding this trail, I came across two moose just soaking up the sun in a marsh. Sadly, I didn't catch them on camera, but it looked something like this. It was around this point that I noticed my KLR's rear suspension making a strange noise. With only about 200 kilometers left in the trip, I was really hoping it wasn't about to cut things short. I poked around, trying to figure it out, but in the end, my solution was simple. Turn up the music in my helmet and just keep riding. After passing through Coe Hill, I found myself on the historic Old Hastings Road. Construction on this road began back in 1854 to help open up the area for settlement. These days, it's a quiet place, lined with a handful of cottages and a few ghost towns that serve as reminders of its past. As the sun began to set, I rolled through the hamlet of Delarue on my way back to the starting point in Tweed. After my marathon ride of the Bush Chicken ADV route, I was completely exhausted, but also deeply satisfied. Overall, it's a scenic ride that opened my eyes to some new roads I'll definitely be adding into my own routes. If you're after an easygoing gravel touring experience, I'd absolutely recommend giving it a try. If you've made it this far, thanks for following along, and if you're into ADV and dual sport content, consider hitting that subscribe button. I'll catch you in the next one.